So with that, exactly, it's time for the Q&A. And we'd only have a couple of questions that came in. We provided an answer. Christian just answered one about the support for CIMID. But James, would you like to take the other open question?
Yep, I can handle that. So the question was, why didn't we consider overlay associated with the ad itself instead of associating it just with the content? Um, there's a few reasons. First, if there's an overlay like a QR code or something like that that needs to go on the creative, I'd assume that the brand or agency would just attach it to the creative and not overlay on top of their own creative. Second is you create a lot of potential problems by adding a bid request on top of another bid response. For example, now you have to start thinking about competitive separation and making sure that Ford isn't overlaying on top of Chevrolet or something like that. I'm sure that the person who asked the question was thinking about maybe web or mobile experiences where you have companion ads. I just don't see how that works out in CTV with the entire screen being taken over by the creative itself.
Excellent. We do have a few more questions kind of rolling in, so I'm
All right,
curating and taking
VAST
a look at
4.
that. Yeah, you want to take
So
that?
is VAST 4 support required, recommended for these updated CTV units? Yes. So you need to be able to send media files in the VAST response. So you can, as you can see in VASTlint, you can send that as VAST 4.2, but it doesn't have to be 4.4.
Okay. Let's see. Here's another one. And we've got a few very good questions popping in. If
So does
Go ahead.
nonlinear creative and VAST are measured by OMID integrations? It would be. I don't know of any major platforms who have integrated OM SDK for CTV yet. Um, but if they did, it's the same fields that are used in stream linear.
Another way of saying it is it should be as soon as people use OMSDK
Yeah,
in a CTV
yeah.
environment. Yes. Okay. There we go. Oh, that one was already answered. Sorry. Okay.
Are these specifications also applicable to other devices, or is this just CTV? If only CTV, what about other devices? Uh, it is just CTV for now. That's what we were thinking about. Brad, I don't know if you have thoughts on other devices.
I would say from a standards perspective, try not to limit the growth of how people want to use that. And that I'm not seeing any specific limitations off the top of my head. But yeah, I'd say let's bring that back to the working group conversation and see where people want to take it, see if we can test that idea.
Yeah, and it also brings up whether or not we're talking about CTV experiences on a mobile device or desktop device, or if we're talking about um, like a mobile app experience that differs. If we're talking about a CTV like experience, say you have a vMVPD or multi-channel cable provider app, their pause ad experience should be able to translate whether it's on a mobile device, desktop device, or a CTV device. But bringing it into an app, like while you have an outstream video playing and bringing in pause, is what I was referring to that we didn't have an answer for right now.
Okay. Okay. We've added quite a few others from the audience here. Let's see
Uh,
from Go
I
ahead.
can take the one around menu ads. So for menu ads, the approach to specify CTV helps address the OEM use case. But what about a CTV publisher who also has a web app that viewer may watch on a desktop? How would they signal menu ads? So I think that's where, when we said you need to signal device type equal 3 when you're on a connected TV device is really important. This is a menu ad on a CTV device. If you want to signal a menu ad on another device type, you're free to use the native spec and the actual format itself, but you cannot I guess signal that you're on a connected TV device. You're on a desktop, so you can use the device type accordingly. So I think that's how I would approach that specific use case here.
Right. And then the last question that's down there is, are there examples for each of these new formats available? It depends on, so yes, but it also depends on whether or not you're asking about examples of how they work or examples of how the requests are formatted and responses are formatted, both of which exist just in different places. If you go and look up the IAB Tech Labs press release on these new formats, you'll get the link to the implementation guide, and that'll have everything you need.
Okay. Let's see. All right. Did we miss anything from the open questions? Not. I think we've covered everything. I do have some questions for the panelists here to kind of address a few other high-level things. So, excuse me, we'll use this opportunity to kind of ask kind of the bigger questions, like what's the biggest, to each person on the panel, what is the biggest misconception about adopting the CTV ad portfolio that you would like to clear up here and now for the industry watching and listening? Let's start with Julia. Let's start with Julia.
Sure. So, I mean, hopefully now it's clear that we've gone through the specs in some detail, but maybe it's not clear to everyone that we haven't created whole new specifications. We've actually built upon what's existing. So VAST has been adapted, particularly VAST nonlinear, and also native API has been adapted. There's just a few more signals to capture these new ad formats.
One thing I would add is for pause and screensaver in particular, we went and spoke to and tested multiple experiences that publishers and broadcasters have already implemented. And that's where you have that full screen versus partial screen, and static image versus cinemagraph versus full video. Like those are all broken out based on what we've seen in market and what our partners have told us that they needed. So we should be unblocked from any implementation type. And with the blocked attributes, any publisher has control in their hands to say, these are the only types I'm going to accept. So really the barriers to entry for testing this programmatically are lowered. And we already have, from an index exchange perspective, we have DSPs and publishers who are already supporting the spec. So this is ready to implement. So anybody who wants to roll it out, just please reach out to this group and let us know.
Yeah, to echo the sentiment of my colleagues, like the specs are available now, and like the delta that you need to implement in your platform is a couple new values and maybe the VAS parser upgrade to nonlinear media files. So I think it's not an entirely new spec; it's building on existing things. A misconception that we might want to address is, CTV is no longer just in-stream 30-second ad pod. It's rich ad units, display ad units are supported, cinemagraph, all widely ranging scope of ad execution that are now available to use programmatically.
Thank you. I did have some other specific questions for panelists prepared, but we're running a little short on time. So I'm going to move on to kind of the broader wrap-up questions kind of across all three panelists. So one of the kind of the bigger things, if we look back at this moment, this release of these standards in this moment in time, in about 5 years, what will make these standards feel successful to you? Having been implemented and anything beyond that, specific to you, what is the success metric?
Should I go first?
Sure, might as well.
Sure. I guess it's when we're talking about them like they're part of our everyday, the same way in which we talk about open real-time bidding, for instance, and there's debate about what is the specific meaning of an individual parameter. If we're able to do that with these CTV innovative ad formats, I think that'll be a good day.
Yep, that's exactly and along the same sentiment that I would add. I was part of the working group for OpenRTB 2.6 and saw that come to fruition and worked with different teams at different companies getting it rolled out and adopted. And just 2 years later after that, and you're talking 5 years, Brad, but just 2 years later after that, I was in different countries all around the world, and they're talking about OpenRTB 2.6 and how they're implementing it or how they have implemented it. That was in London, it was in Australia, it was in Japan. That is really cool to be a part of something like this, be part of a standard and a spec that's truly global and has worldwide adoption. So to me, that's success, is coming out of this with an adopted spec that is the standard, that you talk about it anywhere in the world and everybody understands what you're saying.
Yeah. Personally, before you respond, Christian, I'll just say I participated in VAST 1.0, so the fact that it still exists and is alive is kind of a neat perspective. But that was a little while ago, so I look forward to the same thing with these ad formats. So go ahead, Christian.
Yeah, echoing the sentiment here, like tracking these different ad units and seeing growth and spend from all the ecosystem would be a great proof point. I think seeing these ad units being specifically called out in RFPs from agencies also would be a great success for these initiatives.
Yeah, I agree. I think so. So one wrap-up question. I apologize. We did have some pointed specific questions, and if you'd like to try to address some of those, we can continue on. But since kind of the overall theme that growing up means never stop learning. So outside of these standards being adopted widely, what areas around these CTV ad formats are you focused on next? Just adoption?
I mean,
getting the word out?
I hinted at this earlier, but for things like pause ads, having potted requests, I think is pretty big. That doesn't exist in market today, and the experiences that you see, normally you pause and you just see the same ad. So to have these be potted requests that then take advantage of previous work that the Tech Lab has done would be pretty cool.
Like that.
On the specifically for us on the menu side, I think there's several other areas we would like to investigate. Specifically, is there a way to come to agreement to one size or like a 300 by 250 that everyone supports? Would be a great achievement. The other things are custom features that are available on platforms such as app deep links. Is there a way to get to expressing this or even standardizing the format? And then one thing I'm interested in to see more development is how we will surface up the apps or the bundles that are surfacing menu ads as well. So yeah, all interesting things that we could do in a V2, for example.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely echoing Christian's points about menu interactivity. I would say for the moment, we are totally focused on adoption, asking all of our partners in our connected tech and demand stack to adopt so that we can all kind of work together in this new standard. Other than that, I guess there's lots of interesting developments to come in future iterations of Ad Format Hero. We touched on it already, the virtual product placement or in-scene ads. There's a lot more advancement that needs to be done there for that to properly scale out. So looking forward to learning more.
Perfect. And that is a perfect segue into continuing these conversations around what the next phase of these need to be. And here's the details where you can join the IAV Tech Lab Advanced Television Working Group. So we encourage everybody to join in and be part of the conversation, help steer where you think things need to go. We also need to do a quick plug for hey, there's a theme going on here. Streaming grows up. It is part of our large event in November coming up called I Want My CTV. And so it is kind of the recurring theme leading up to that, and we'll dive in a whole lot more in person in New York, diving through all of these topics, plus a lot of other interesting ones around the growth of CTV. So with that, I want to say thank you to our panelists and thank you to our attendees. This has been a very informational, good conversation. All the time is worth it. And to all the attendees, please go out and adopt as quickly as you possibly can. I appreciate that. So with that, thank you. Have a good day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.